Thanks a lot, Charlie. Well, it feels great to be back in the trenches again with you, Charlie, and the rest of the Renegades of Puck. Of course, I am Bryan Bastin here at the Renegade Analytics Desk, and I'm back for another year in the trenches with you all. And of course, that means that we're going to be getting lots of stats and numbers and maybe some new stuff, but things along that line. Now, of course, we're here because this is a very special episode. This is the episode 800 of the Renegades of Puck, which is just incredible and a testament to the hard work put in by Charlie and the rest of the Renegades of Puck over these years. It started a long, long time ago over on the radio with fine folks like Dirk Hogue, who started on the forecheck all those years ago and now has become something truly incredible. We've had more views than we did last year than we have ever had before, and downloads. And so, again, I am extremely proud to be in the trenches. But what you're here to see is the Renegades Analytic Desk and my one big stat. But, of course, I'm not going to start with just one stat. So we're going to have three big stats today as we look at the Predators. And, it's rebuild time, just like the fans asked for. And so with that comes a lot of growing pains. And so we're going to talk about three areas in which Nashville, the rebuild is actually happening. And we have Brunette in as head coach, Barry Trotz as the general manager, and a whole bunch of new faces because a lot of familiar faces have left. And so the wheels are in motion, folks, but the work is not done yet. There's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to worry about. And we're going to talk about those in today's edition of One Big Stat. Now, first, we just need to talk about replacing production. Now, again, there is a ton of players who have left, longtime Nashville Predators or relatively long time, like Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene, Matthias Ekholm, guys like Tanner Jeannot, Eeli Tolvanen. These are all players that, we were used to seeing in Nashville, and they're gone now. And what is exactly Nashville going to have to replace right now? Well, they're going to have to replace a lot of things, including manpower. In fact, of the 1,475 games played by Nashville skaters last season, only 1,045 of them are returning. That means that's 30% of the number of games played for the Nashville Predators last season are gone and off this roster. And it's very similar numbers for scoring. 148 of the 223 goals scored last season by the Predators skaters are returning, which is a 34% loss in goal production, and 411 out of 601 points returning, which is 32% loss. So any way you want to look at it, be it manpower, goal scoring, point production, whatever it is, Nashville has lost a good third of their scoring. I mean, half of the top 10 in goal scoring last season are gone. And so Nashville has a lot of big shoes to fill. And guys like Ryan O'Reilly, Gustav Nyquist, players like that, they expect to come in and really provide a jolt. But the question is Nashville going to be able to replace this? Because, they were only 5 points out of the playoffs last season. And on paper, this team should probably be worse. But if these players, including all these young players that are splitting time between Milwaukee and other places, if these guys can step up, we could see another season very similar to last year, which I think for pretty much every Nashville fan would be a major win in year one of the Barry Trotz era. Now, one of the faces that did not leave and hopefully will never leave, of course, is everyone's favorite Filip Forsberg. And Filip Forsberg is the man in that forward group now. The only player, that has as much tenure as he does is Colton Sissons. But I mean, again, Filip Forsberg has been around for quite some time, and now he is the lone veteran star that the entire forward group has to look to. This is a guy who has been here in Nashville, basically homegrown, if you don't count the fact that he was drafted by Washington. But there's only a handful of these guys left, like Roman Josi, Filip Forsberg. UC Saros. Really, there's just one guy per position group, but it's going to be very, very important for Filip Forsberg, especially since a majority of those players that left last season were forwards like Matt Duchene, Ryan Johansson, Eeli Tolvanen, and so on and so forth. So the big thing is that we've seen that Philip Forsberg is a spectacular hockey player. And 2 years ago, we saw that as he and Matt Duchene both went over 40 goals, the first time any Nashville player had gone over 40 goals in a season, but regressed a little bit last year. And part of the problem, I think, stems from something that you'll probably be familiar with, and that is, can Philip Forsberg stay healthy? Now, he started full-time playing with the Nashville Predators in the 2014-2015 season, and he played all 82 games that year, including the playoffs, and then did that again 2 more times. So 3 years in a row, he played all 82 games plus playoff games, and that third year, of course, was the playoff run that ended in the Stanley Cup Finals against Pittsburgh. But since then, Philip Forsberg has never played more than 69 games a season. And he missed 32 games just last year. He only played 50 last year, 19 goals and 23 assists. That's not what Philip Forsberg usually puts on. But it's time for him to be able to step up. Again, he has not played a majority of the games. And with those games that were missing last season, those 32 games, Nashville only finished 5 points out of the playoffs. Philip Forsberg being there for maybe half of those missed games, say maybe 17 more games, that could have been the difference between everything changing or Philip Forsberg being there and being enough of a difference maker to drag the Nashville Predators into the playoffs last year. So I think that Philip Forsberg has a lot left in the tank. It's going to be very important that he comes back healthy, and he's looked like it so far. He's played like a man possessed in the preseason, but he's got to come back and he has to lead this team because there's not a lot of support around him. These are a lot of new line mates. These are, he's going to be on the first line with players that, he's never played with these combination of players before. And so there's going to be a lot to watch, and he is the guy, the veteran leader in that forward group. And so everybody's going to be looking to him to step up, and we have to hope that he can stay healthy, and we'll see the Philip Forsberg of old. Now, of course, I would be remiss if, I didn't talk about something that's a little off the ice, and that is the salary cap. And there's a couple points I want to make about the salary cap here for the third big stat of the night. Well, currently Nashville sits with about $7.1 million in cap space, which, depending on cuts in camp and how the 23-man roster shakes out, it should be around that number, $7.1 million. Now, that gives them some flexibility to start the year. I think that when it comes to replacing players in the lineup, they'll probably go to Milwaukee and those players to try and call them up and give them a chance because, the training camp roster is still crowded. And there's a lot of guys that are just barely not making camp this season that I think will be first ones called up. So I don't expect Nashville to go out and go sign a free agent unless it's absolutely necessary. But they've got space to make things work. Say, come around the trade deadline, if they want to move a piece and need to take on some extra cap, they can do that. Unfortunately, though, this is a good start and gives us reason to be optimistic this season. They don't have very much to spend the next few years. Now, we heard from Gary Bettman earlier this year that they expect the salary cap in the next couple of years to go up to around $86 million, which is good, but those gains in the salary cap are not going to be realized by the Nashville Predators. This year, they will be paying 4 players of a significant amount of money to not play a game for the Nashville Predators. For example, this year, they are paying $8.8 million of cap space to those players no longer on the team. Ryan Johansson, Matt Duchene, who was bought out, Kyle Turris, who was bought out, and Matthias Ekholm, who they retained $250,000 for the next few years, which is not a huge sum, but still, that's 4 big players on the books. These are guys that are, highlights of David Poyle's career as a GM, and they're all gone. And so Nashville is basically paying, almost $9 million for 4 players to suit up against them, in various teams. So that's not great, but it gets worse. The following year, it increases they'll have $11.8 million being paid to those 4 players, which means that they're almost going to be losing cap space, even though the salary cap may go up by that. Johansson goes off the books the following year in 2025, but Nashville is still, again, on the hook for $8.8 million, and they're not going to be done. They've got several more years after that where they'll be paying probably an average of around $3.5 and $4 million. So Nashville has to be extremely careful with what they do and going out and making any signings either after this year, a trade deadline, anything like that, because they have some money to spend now, but money is going to be a real tight issue in the future for general manager Barry Trotz. And of course, there's always this looming specter of Shea Weber. If Shea Weber retires in the next couple of years before the original contract is up, the cap recapture penalty will happen, and Nashville will all of a sudden be probably paying another $6-7 million a year as part of that cap recapture. So I don't think that's going to happen. However, stranger things have happened. So Nashville's in a little bit of a bind, and so spending money is going to be extremely important for GM Barry Trotz, again, who is a first-time GM, but in Barry we trust, so we'll see how it goes. Well, that's it for these 3 big stats and me at the Renegades Analytics Desk. But at first, I do want to say a couple of things. First, a special shout-out to Jim Beringer of Full Press Hockey. It was great to have him here and stopping by, and it's good to have great hockey minds like him in the trenches with us, and I'm really looking forward to working more with him in the future. And of course, I do want to talk about, I am still with On the Forecheck, but as you may know, On the Forecheck has gone through a bit of a transition in the last few months. We have now recently relaunched as part of the For Hockey Fans Network, which is really exciting. It is a lot of the websites that were moving away from SB Nation and Vox Media. A ton of work was done by our site manager, Kate. Steph Driver, who of course was our boss over there at SB Nation, is still leading the effort there, and a bunch of other people have worked really hard. And now On the Forecheck and all of these sites are now fully independent, which is something that's really great because, we can treat our writers better. We have more freedom over what we do, and we're really looking forward to your support as we launch into a new era, because even though the network that we're affiliated may have changed, On the Forecheck has been here for a very long time and will continue to be there. So be there for you all. And of course, Charlie, always honorary at On the Forecheck and vice versa. And so it's great to continue this partnership this year, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for us here in the trenches. So I'm Bryan Bastin at the Renegades Analytics Desk, and back to you, Charlie.